Welcome to the Data Centered Leadership Podcast. Today we have a guest who's an expert in a topic that has become very near and dear to our hearts. Sameh Shamroukh is a supply chain, logistics, and operational expert with over 24 years of experience in driving supply chain solution excellence and transformation. Sameh has experience in major Fortune 500 companies such as Ryder and Caterpillar, Inc., driving improvements in global operations while focusing heavily on client satisfaction. Sameh holds a PhD degree in supply chain analytics. Sameh, thank you for joining us.
Taylor, thank you for inviting me, and I'm excited to be with you. And again, thank you for having me today.
Thank you. So let's go ahead and get started. So with the advent of COVID and the ensuing panic-induced toilet paper shortages, supply chains have become a hot topic recently. At this point, most people realize that supply chains are the backbones of businesses. They help us to get all the products we want when we want them. Sam, as a leading supply chain expert, could you please give us a brief technical definition of a supply chain control tower?
Taylor, supply chain control tower has been around for quite some time. It has been addressing the visibility side of the supply chain, mainly the logistics and transportation visibility. Until recently, started to expand and look at other areas because the number of tiers in the supply chain determines how much visibility is possible, and degree to which downstream problems companies can spot. So the supply chain control tower has been revolutionized from just visibility, pure logistics visibility, to include supply chain visibility and performance assessment. If I read you the Gartner definition of a supply chain control tower, Gartner defines supply chain control tower as a concept combining 5 elements: people, process, data, and organization, supported by a set of technology-enabled capabilities for transparency and coordination. And if you see this transparency and coordination, the transparency, this is basically the performance assessment of the supply chain, where the coordination basically includes more than the visibility within the 4 walls of the supply chain, and it goes beyond that. Basically, it's the E2E visibility and multi-tier awareness in true value for all companies. So visibility is really important, right? But supply chain performance assessment adds value to the supply chain control. Based on all of that, I can define supply chain control tower as a cross-functional enterprise and ecosystem to provide visibility and to improve supply chain performance and assessment. Tyler.
Wow, that sounds like a very intelligent system. Thanks for sharing, Sam. So let's get into more details of the supply chain control tower. How exactly does the supply chain control tower help businesses to improve their supply chains? Specifically, what is the supply chain control tower's function?
As I mentioned a bit ago, Tyler, the number of tiers in the supply chain determines how much visibility is possible, and the degree to which downstream problems contributes, and you can spot before they become real risk and issues. So, and basically before they become a real problem. So the E2E visibility of the supply chain to the end tier of the supplier and the end tier of the distribution channels is really important, because it helps detect the problems before they happen, and it takes basically the end users and the supply chain players from the four-wall silo of operations that they are used to the basically proactive mode, end-to-end visibility and performance assessment. So the control tower helps each player in the organization by providing actionable insights to proactively address any problems under their respective responsibility. And I need to be basically, I need to underline this word proactive, because supply chain control tower helps automate detecting the problems and basically finding the problems before they happen, provide the root causes for the problems, help the end user to say, hey, here are the root causes of this problem, and here are the suggested actionable insight that you need to take. And here are the cost of each actionable insight. So the supply chain control tower helps basically everybody in the ecosystem, the supply chain ecosystem, see the problem by detecting the anomalies, understand the root causes of the problem, and outline the root causes, and then provide the actionable insights for those problems. And this is not only at the operational level. This is at all level in the organizations, from the executives to the operations. Executives these days are really worried about the supply chain. After the pandemics, the COVID-19 pandemics, some of the tier 3 suppliers, they went out of business, which really caused disruption in the supply chain. Had they have that visibility ahead of time, they would have taken actions to mitigate the risk, right? At least finding alternate suppliers to reduce the disruption in the supply chain. So to summarize what I've just said, the supply chain control tower enables every player in the supply chain at all levels to proactively find about the issues and detect the problems, find the root causes of the problems, and the corrective insights available for issues and problems. Right?
Very interesting. So it sounds like the supply chain control tower helps to connect organizations across the entire, all levels, and it also creates proactive suggested solutions with the cost of each. That is something new that I've learned, that it not only gives potential solutions, but it also sounds like it maps out the cost of each and allows the users to better understand why it's making the decisions it's making. So it's not like they have to just blindly trust it. They get really excellent detailed information on why this tool is making these decisions, so they can ultimately make an intelligent decision.
Absolutely, Taylor. And as I mentioned, the supply chain control tower interconnects all supply chain ecosystems. Not one, not two, but the 4 ecosystems. The supplier ecosystem to the end tier of the suppliers, the replenishment ecosystem to the end tier of the channel management, the supply planning ecosystem to make sure basically there is a balance between the supply and plan and the supply and the distribution, and finally what sits on the top, which is the transportations and logistics global trade ecosystem. The 4 ecosystems are coming together and they're synchronized with each other to help that end user, help each player in the organization. Because if I am a demand planner, I'm worried about my demand plan, but there's subsequent functions that others are waiting for. And those people, they have to have the visibility. When am I going to finish this? When am I going to have my plan ready? And what would be the subsequent action, and what the problems in my issues and the subsequent actions in the issue. So as I mentioned, it's not just one ecosystem or 2. They are not enough. The 4 ecosystems of supply chain, which is the procurement in the supply side, the distribution and the replenishment in the channel side, the supply planning for the supply demand match, and then finally the logistics and global trade ecosystem. Right.
Interesting. So are you saying that it's the critical aspect that enables the supply chain control tower to work is that it spreads across all of the ecosystems of the supply and demand side surrounding a given user business?
Absolutely, and And not only that, Tyler, it is spread all over the ecosystems, and it integrates the ecosystems. The ecosystem, as I mentioned, it takes the enterprises from the four-wall siloed reactive mode to the end-to-end visibility of the supply chain and ecosystem, and take them to the reactive mode, proactive mode, Tyler, and then basically provide the visibility to each aspect and each action within the supply chain and the impact upstream and downstream. For example, if a supplier has a strike, right, and the strike this will impact production, right, and that production will impact subsequent activities. It will impact when the carrier is coming to load that inventory to the next operation. It will impact also the subsequent operations for basically making sure everything is going as planned.
Amazing. It sounds like it's a very revolutionary technology, and it requires data from many different streams, and then it uses some very advanced models to help inform users and also to make decisions, help them make decisions, or even make decisions for them. So I'm sure those models must be quite complex. So Sam, as not only a supply chain expert, but also a supply chain analytics expert with great experience in supply chains and excellent academic and industry experience in supply chain control towers, could you please share what types of models you would use within the heart of the supply chain control tower to provide the end users these potential decisions and also these details surrounding the decisions?
Tyler, in order to have a very successful supply chain control tower that spans across the four ecosystems that I just outlined, you will need to have a source for the data, right? Data is really important here. You need to have a way to collect this data, and this, in order to have that source of data, you need to have that supply chain control tower sitting on a huge end-to-end network. Basically, a network that spans from the suppliers on one side to the channel and distributors from the other side, and whatever in between. That includes warehouses, manufacturing and operations, and planning. And you need the digital twin of that supply chain. And the digital twin is basically composed of all of those supply chain applications. And as you know, data without applications is no value. And the opposite is also true. Applications without data is no value too. So supply chain control tower is built basically, it's that intelligent layer that sits on top of all of those applications on modules. That includes demand planning, demand sensing, inventory planning, transportation and logistics planning, and finally the financial aspects of the supply chain end-to-end solutions. So as I mentioned, you need the data there, and you need that data to be cleansed and harmonized to be fed to the supply chain applications. So the supply chain applications will be able to consume these data, consume it and analyze it to make decisions. And these days, I mean, for a few years, we used to deal with the traditional supply chain applications built on traditional algorithms. But with the invention of the AI and machine learning, the supply chain modules and applications start to adopt AI and machine learning to be able to make use of that data, right? And as I mentioned, you need data, and the more data you have, the better, right? The more data you have, the better AI and machine learning you will have. So, the modules, they'll be able to consume this data and give you the results that you are looking for. And in order to make it seamless for the end user, right? Supply chain control tower will be configurable enough for the end user to project that in data in the way that the user would like to see and act upon, right? Whether it's a dashboard or a smart alert or whatever. It's that agile configurable system that the end user can have to basically be much more proactive than reactive. And it's the system that will be able to make decisions for the users. So the users are becoming much more smarter to pay attention to their operations than the technology. So the technology is making the heavy lifting for consuming the data, analyzing the data, making decisions, and finally presenting the solutions for the end user, so the end users will be able to make the smart actions based on the decisions made by the modules on those in the supply chain control tower. Tyler.
Wow, amazing. So it sounds like it's almost a kind of a pyramid that requires the vast quantities of clean, harmonized data that make a virtual version of all these different businesses in the supply chain. So that's the foundation. But then for the modeling, it sounds like, I think I counted off that there are at least 6 different types of modeling or algorithms. But well, now they went from manually implemented, created algorithms now to AI algorithms, but there were at least 6 different types. I think you said demand planning, demand sensing, inventory planning, and also the financial aspects.
You will have the business planning, the transportation and logistics, collaboration management, and so on. But all of these are basically the models and the modules that makes up the whole supply chain end-to-end offering, right? And as I mentioned, Tyler, it's not only the data; it's the data and the collaboration on top of this data. You need to have everybody in the whole supply chain arena is able to see and collaborate on the same transaction and be able to see a single version of the truth, right? You need, for example, the shipper, when they are shipping that load to the final destination, the supplier and the buyer will be able to see based on the order that they have, without having visibility to the shipment aspect of it. They will be able to see what's happening and the progress of that, right? And then the buyer would know, and the supplier would know when that order and the shipment was delivered, and where their invoice will be paid and processed. So everybody in that supply chain arena will have that single version visibility, a single version of the truth visibility, and be able to see that aspect of the solution.
Right. So it sounds like, yes. So the peak on top of all those different models is the visualization that shares everything that shares the correct information from those different models with all the key stakeholders. And that's why I think that gives a good clue as to why it's called Supply Chain Control Tower, because it is able to have visibility over all those different aspects of the supply chain. And then with its advanced modeling systems and also with its visualization capabilities, it takes all that information and gives visibility to all the end users. So that sounds like a very valuable system. So clearly the control tower has a high value, but it sounds like this sort of an implementation, I mean, we know it would require an advanced supply tracking system that creates a virtual mirror of the entire supply ecosystem of all 4 ecosystems. And it would also require the users to trust in those advanced computer algorithms and make the correct decisions based on the algorithms outputs. So, and we know that you're a very successful supply chain executive. And so you've adopted these systems within multiple organizations. So my question to you is, as you're clearly a leader in the supply chain control tower implementation, how, as a leader, in supply chain control tower implementation, how do you convince companies and individuals within the companies to adopt the control tower at every level, to be enabled and make sure that they're adding every possible data stream to that system, and then also to trust the recommendations of the algorithms and make the best decisions for their companies?
Taylor, this depends on the industry itself, and it depends on the use case. Let me give you some use cases here, and we can have a discussion around that. Let's look at the supply chain performance, right? Huge organizations, they have dedicated departments for a specific function of the supply chain. And those departments, they can have 15, 20 to 25 smart engineers to handle one aspect of that supply chain. So, and basically the upstream and downstream sometimes is held still because they are waiting for that specific function to finish and complete, right? So how about if you have that smart system that's sitting on top of your whole supply chain network, and that smart system is able to make the decision on your behalf, is able to see, hey, is my plan ready? If my plan is ready, can I move to the next stage? What checks and balances I have to do? What validation I have to do? What editing I have to implement? What problems I have already detected? What issues I have to bring to the end users before I move to the next level? And if I have problems and detected issues, what are the root causes for these problems? How can I bring it to the end user and say, hey, you know, you have a stock out here, and the first thing when you hear the word stock out, the first thing that comes to my mind, any individual mind, oh, because you might have had a bad demand plan. This might not be true, because you can have stock outs because you have lots of damages that happened at a specific warehouse, and the damages created the stock out. So you have to bring to the end users, oh, end user, we had damages in that specific date in this specific warehouse, and this has created the stock out in these specific outlets. So what's the solution for this to mitigate the risk here? Yeah, the solution, because I have visibility, I'm sitting on top of your supply chain 24/7, and I have visibility not only to the movement within the supply chain, I have visibility to the inventory there, I have visibility to the activities in each warehouse, in each outlet. I can tell you, I can give you recommendations, quickly move some of the inventory from warehouse to the other to mitigate the rest. And it will tell you exactly when is, for example, the next delivery schedule is coming to mitigate the risk of the stock outs you have. So in this scenario, Tyler, you can feel that, hey, I don't have to have an army of people sitting, cranking plans and trying to guess on the next problem, and then try to find the optimal solution. I have a system, an intelligence system, which is basically empowered by an AI platform that will help find the issues for me, find the root causes, and suggest the actions for me and what I need to do. So operators at the end of the day, they worry only about their operations. They don't worry about technology. Technology has taken care of the heavy lifting for them, has taken care of how you are going to approach the problem, has taken care of how you are going to solve the problem, and then all what they need to do is execute. This is a scenario. Another scenario, for example, supply chain performance planning. Look at the expirations now, Tyler. And this example comes to my mind all the time, because in the pharmaceutical industry, the annual expiration value is almost $1 billion.
Wow.
So if you have a system that sits there and what's the root cause of that expiration? Because you don't have visibility where these items are sitting, right? And you don't know when they are going to expire. If you have that visibility, if you have that system that sits on top of your supply chain, end-to-end supply chain, including your warehousing, your transportation ecosystem, your supply ecosystem, your demand ecosystem, your distribution ecosystem, then that system would be able to tell you, hey, end user, by there you have item XYZ sitting in DC1 and it's going to expire after 6 months. This item is not moving that fast. This is the rate of movement for this. You need to make an action on this. And by the way, the reason for this that item is not moving, it was over ordered for a specific reason. Right? So there was some issue that was happening in that area, some disease that was happening or occurring in that area, and that's not the case anymore. So this is the reason for that. That was not the right order, or maybe the historical data was not accurate to make this order. And then the system will tell you, by the way, I can help you out. You still have 6 months. Why don't you? I know I have visibility to your supply chain. I know where are the demand areas, and I can basically start to move that supply from these specific warehouses to the demand area to have them move fast. If that system saves you only one, I'm not going to say 10% or 15%, only 1% out of that $1 billion, wouldn't you opt for that? Of course, yes, right?
Yes.
So, Taylor, it's and I can give more examples, but it is a business or industry specific value assessment for the supply chain control, Tyler.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Sam. It sounds like the supply chain control tower, by having all of the information at one time in the system, it's able to make the decisions much more quickly than individuals could. So once it reaches a critical mass, it's able to replace many end users and allow the people who are actually executing these decisions to focus on execution over analysis and manual communication, and thereby it can easily save 15%, for example, on losses in the pharmaceutical industry.
At least, and just one point here, Tyler, we are not looking for replacing human intelligence here, because as I mentioned, we are taking the heavy lifting from the human intelligence here, that the system can do that. And we are having that human power to focus on the next operation, right? And to make sure that the operation is moving smooth, because operations management in the supply chain is an aspect by itself. And we can talk about it some other time, but you don't want the operator to be basically worried about what's going to happen about my operations, how I can execute my next order, and then worry about, can the system handle that? Can the system support this? Do I have visibility to this? Where can I find my orders? Do I have to order this from the supplier? If I order this from the supplier, how much is it going to cost me? Do I have something in my network that I can bank on and move it to satisfy this demand and so on? Tyler.
Very interesting. Thank you so much, Sam, for taking the time and joining us to share your wisdom about supply chain control towers. This is clearly a very exciting application of data in analytics that is absolutely improving the world. And Sam, is there anything else you'd like to share? We will have your LinkedIn posted on the website.
As I mentioned, Tyler, the supply chain control tower is the integrated smart layer that sits on the end-to-end supply chain network. And lately, with the advancement of AI and machine learning, AI and machine learning supported the data-driven decision making in the supply chain control tower. Basically, the AI gave that a fourth dimension for the supply chain control tower that helps basically the automation, right? So clearly, users are not in the stage to automate decision making at this point, right? Because everybody is worried about is this decision the right decision or not. But as I mentioned, AI is already there. AI is implemented in supply chain control tower, and those AI agents are sitting there learning, right? They are learning how the end user is making decisions, and after some time, those agents will be able to make decisions on behalf of the users. So now we are going to go a step ahead of, instead of just offering the suggested action insight to the users. There's another agent sitting there to make decisions on behalf of the end user. Tyler.
Interesting. So it sounds like you wanted to make clear that. So it sounds like part of the way that it builds trust is while it's collecting the data and creating the models, it gives the detailed information. And that's part of how the algorithm itself can build the trust with the users. And by the time the model has enough data to really be robust and reliable, the user's already trusted inherently to help make the decisions.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Great. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Tyler, for having me today. I'm very happy to be here and share my knowledge with the audience here. Any clarification? The audience will have my LinkedIn information. They can communicate with me for further discussion, and I look forward to talking to you again in the near future.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you, Tyler. Bye-bye.